Well, hello everybody. Important live. I hope I don't get zapped, but I just finished this morning, 6 a.m. all the way through till 7 a.m. this morning, the NATO final and what Canada has committed to with Ukraine going forward, July 31st to July 31st of next year and every single year after. Now, folks, I went through the numbers as they truly are, how much Canada in total has contributed to Ukraine, and it's a whopping number, and it goes up to 14.7 billion this year going forward, plus a 2% commitment to NATO, which we are way under. It costs extreme amount of monies. You won't get this breaking news anywhere in Canada. But I tell you, by the numbers, I'm extremely close, within literally less than millions of dollars, folks. We're talking about billions here. That's 1,000 million. So way under half a percentage point, plus or minus. I can guarantee my numbers that close, absolutely backed up by all economic markers posted not only globally but within NATO as well as Canadian statistics. Folks, the Climate Fraud Canada, we have year over year collected $22 billion in carbon taxes, all of which have gone to Ukraine this last year, as well as all of our increased spending in NATO, which we grew by a large percent. Anyone can grab our annual federal military budget. You can go by our current GDP and the 2% commitment that Canada's promised. We know year over year Canada increased its military spending by 8.3%. Where did the money come from? Carbon tax. And more than that, how much money has gone actually year over year in carbon tax to small businesses just in Canada? Less than 1%. How much of you have seen any of your carbon tax returned to you in any real significant way? The answer is zero, zero, zero. Clearly, we can see where carbon tax has gone. Not to climate, not to investment in Canada's business sector, as we dropped dramatically. You can't find an economist to dispute any of the numbers I've presented today. They won't dispute it. They won't even report it. They won't publish it. I'm probably the only trained economist, schooled economist to bring this forward to Canadians today. Finland got into NATO this morning. Sweden's right behind it. Good old Greta Thunberg, Norway, Sweden. If you want to look at their economies, I'm a Bjorkman, although I'm not Norwegian or Swedish anymore, my ancestry, still have lots of family over there. We know how the economies work. They're jointly together. One is the primary, the other is the business sector. They do joint military. And folks, they're spending nowhere near per person per capita Canada's on Ukraine. We weren't even mentioned today in NATO. Trudeau stood right beside Zelensky. Nothing said about Canada, so Canada is garbage. You're all garbage subjects, and you just forked over year 10 direct billion Canadian, and now you're going to $4.67 billion as of this morning, or roughly 33% of your military budget so far you've devoted in all financial, humanitarian, and military aid. More than that, we've committed to strengthening NATO this morning to 300,000 more troops. Canada will commit 2% GDP to that end. Look at how much that's worth. It is the entirety of all carbon tax collected. And you can look year over year what made its way back to Canadians in carbon tax. Less than 1% of it. Think about that, folks. You're going forward and you can continue on for all the foreseeable future, as many years as it takes. How much more is carbon tax going to go up? We are a socialist extreme country. Massive taxation, not for the benefit of Canadians, but for the benefit of foreign powers and foreign influences. Extreme global socialism, a communism unto all its own. Now, you look at America, or American taxpayers funding the same way Canada is? No. And sadly, it is the American government draining itself and having Congress pass budgets over and over that far exceed what the government rakes in. They're in a gross net deficit in government spending year after year, the largest increase in American history. The government's never been so far beyond its net GDP ratio. A bankrupting American government. That's what they're doing in the face of Americans. That's the power of a corrupt president in the United States of America. And his name is Joe Biden. But Canadians, it's not my country. Canada's my country. They keep talking about a Green New Deal, transformation. Oh, don't worry, don't worry. There is nothing in investment for Canadians. We've even upped through provincial deficits what we're going to finance in Green New Deal jobs. Nothing at all to do with carbon tax. In fact, carbon tax hasn't even been used in the name of climate for anything more than 1%. 1% of what the government took, they put towards any kind of Green New Deal or any kind of environmental change. There's been literally zero, none whatsoever. All spending on that has come from the provincial taking on deficits at a 50% ratio coming from federal deficits. Look at Ontario. All these new plants, all these new transitions are absolutely 60-40 provincial debt to federal investment. And it didn't come out of carbon taxes. It comes out of more debt and deficits. We've been played, suckered. There is no economic markers to dispute what I'm telling you. And go look at the NATO commitments just made less than 45 minutes ago, live for the whole world, the whole Western world. You can take what Canada's promised, what Canada's going to do for all foreseeable years, and keep adding that 2% GDP ratio, and it'll keep increasing with Canada's GDP, which is highly financed by debt and deficit against Canadian citizens, meaning you're being devalued to promote actions in a whole other side of the world. I don't know what's right or wrong. All I know is you should just have a war tax, like War Income Tax Act, but governments, especially socialist ones, get more creative and more sneaky at getting you to go along with all of their agendas by naming taxes different names, because war tax doesn't really look good, right? Defense spending, even though there's nothing defensive about taking your arms, your personnel, your finances, transporting them to another country to wage war from one country to another that's not your domestic country. Think about that. Canada's not at a war with Russia, at least not yet. And folks, NATO did not accept Ukraine today or provide any timeline for Ukraine to join NATO. That was clearly finished, finalized this morning in Lithuania, and nobody provided any concrete timeline for NATO. What we did get is that Canada's going to spend all of its carbon tax forever and a day on Ukraine and all NATO actions going forward, so we can be ready to fight Russia and China in a World War III. I can promise you all, Canada will never take in that NATO arrangement a Russia China two front war. USA can't do it. Don't count on Europe and those allies to do it. UK is nowhere near what they were in World War II, let alone their fall from their colonial period times. They're not a superpower. They're big talkers. So is Canada, Australia, New Zealand. For whatever reason, it comes with an overinflated ego of the crown, and it's always the subjects and the savages who pay tremendously. We got more on colonialism, more illegal immigration in Tunisia. I want to finish the lie that was shared on that same platform in NATO. Tunisia was a protectorate of France through treaty and treaty alone. They were never a colonial smashed country like Algeria was. We start looking at the colored world that vastly outpopulates us in the West and our alliance with most Axis powers from World War II. If you don't know what an ally and Axis power is, well, look at NATO. It's a flip-flop, 50-50, half the allies and most of the Axis powers of World War II. It is whites versus the colored world that clearly outnumbers us at a dramatic ratio. When you talk about second world, first world countries, at those numbers and the ability to generate on GDP percentages, even in weaker economies, clearly you can see we're in a lot of trouble, folks. We're in a lot of trouble. And this reverse colonialism in illegal immigration is all targets from that world abused by all the colonial countries. You're seeing a flip. They're sending you massive amounts of illegals. Why are they targeting all these countries? For their colonial sins of the past. It's not hard. Every country you look at with the highest illegal immigration, you can look at their history. They were a colonizer or a participant of or are being run by colonizers today and still in those systems. And that's why the targets. Look at all the targets. Not hard to figure out. I've done massive years of research on this. You're not going to find anybody with this kind of work done, but anyone who looks at it and those who follow me a long time, pick your country in those top 10 lists. You will find their history of being a colonizer or in complicit action with the colonizer, meaning they were under that colonizer, they participated, they wronged somebody within their vicinity or participated in the destruction of somebody else, is being targeted the highest with immigration, specifically illegal immigration. And these countries are all being eroded from the outside to the in, and they don't see it. USA sees it. You can see the change in immigration policy with USA for however long that lasts, but it won't last forever. All the others have to tax at excruciating rates. The taxation we're seeing Soviet style. You start looking at Norway, Sweden, they're taxing way more